The crystal towers of Kepler 442b sparkled under the soft yellow light of their star. For 300 years, the Zephyrians had lived in peace on this quiet world. Their cities were beautiful, made of living crystal that grew like plants but shined like diamonds. The Zephyrians themselves were tall and thin, with skin so clear you could almost see through it. They were smart, very smart. Their minds could do math that would make human computers cry. But they were not fighters. Dr. Lixa Moonwhisper worked in her lab that morning, just like any other day. She was studying the patterns of light from distant stars when the alarm started screaming. At first she thought it was a drill. The Zephyrians had drills sometimes just to be safe. But then she looked up at the sky through her window. Dark shapes were falling from the clouds like metal rain. Big shapes. Ship shapes. The first explosion shook the crystal tower so hard that Lixa fell to the floor. Books and equipment crashed around her. Outside she could see other towers starting to crack and fall. People were running in the streets, their voices high with fear. Lixa had never seen war before. None of the Zephyrians had. They were a peaceful people who solved problems with talk and math, not with guns and bombs. But someone had brought war to their world anyway. The attacking ships were huge and black, covered with spikes and guns. They looked angry, like metal beasts hungry for destruction. These were Vorthon ships, though Lixa did not know that yet. The Vorthons were warriors from the edge of the galaxy. They lived for battle and conquest. For them, war was not something terrible. It was something beautiful. Lixa ran to the emergency communications center in the basement of her tower. Other scientists were already there, their clear faces pale with terror. Elder Windchime, the head of their research center, was trying to call for help on the big communication array. No response from the Altarian Federation, he said, his voice shaking. The Centauri Alliance says they are too busy with their own problems. The Rigel Commerce Guild says helping us would not be profitable. More explosions shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow. Through the small windows, they could see the crystal city burning. The beautiful towers that had taken centuries to grow were being smashed to pieces in minutes. Keep trying, Lixa said, pushing past the others to reach the main communication panel. Her 6 fingers moved fast over the controls, sending out distress signals to every corner of the galaxy. Someone has to help us. Someone has to care. But the answers that came back were all the same. Sorry, but no. Too far away. Too dangerous. Not worth the risk. Good luck. One by one, every major power in the galaxy said no to the Zephyrians. They were alone. The attack continued for hours. Vorthon ground troops had landed and were moving through the city. They were big creatures twice as tall as Zephyrians, covered in natural armor like walking tanks. They had 4 arms and claws that could cut through crystal like butter. The few Zephyrian peacekeepers who tried to fight them were swept aside, like leaves in a storm. Lixa kept sending distress calls. Her voice was getting hoarse from talking to so many different worlds, but she did not stop. This is Kepler 442b, she said over and over. We are under attack. We need help. Anyone who can hear this, please help us. Most of the calls went to empty space. Some reached worlds that were too far away to help even if they wanted to. A few reached civilizations that could help but chose not to. The galaxy was a big place, and the Zephyrians were just one small world that most people had never heard of. But sometimes, calls go to places you do not expect. Far away, on a small blue and green world that most aliens thought was too dangerous to live on, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison was working the night shift at the Sol Defense Network monitoring station. He was tired and drinking his 5th cup of coffee when the Zephyrian distress call came through his equipment. Morrison sat up straight when he heard Lixa's voice speaking in broken English through the universal translator. The fear in her voice was clear, even across the language barrier. He had heard that kind of fear before during the war on Mars when the mining corporations tried to take over the colonies. Holy hell, Morrison said quietly. He had fought in that war. He knew what it sounded like when innocent people were being killed by bullies with bigger guns. Morrison immediately sent the message to Earth Command and to the Colonial Marine Headquarters on Luna. Within an hour, alarms were ringing in command centers across the human solar system. Within 2 hours, Admiral Susan Blake was calling an emergency meeting. The meeting was loud and angry. Some people said it was not their problem. Earth was still new to space travel. They had only had faster-than-light ships for a few years. Why should they risk their people for aliens they had never met? Because it is the right thing to do, Admiral Blake said when the shouting died down. She was an older woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from her own time as a Marine. How many distress calls did Earth send out when the asteroid mining consortium tried to claim our system? How many alien worlds answered when we asked for help? The room got quiet. Everyone remembered those dark days when Earth was alone against corporate raiders who wanted to strip mine their planets and enslave their people. No one had come to help them then. They had to fight alone. "We have 3 ships that can reach their system," reported Captain Ryan Clark. "The Canterbury, the Pueblo, and the Virginia. They are not big ships, but they are fast and they are ours." "What about ground forces?" Blake asked. Colonel Amy Rodriguez stepped forward. She was a short woman, but everyone in the room knew her reputation. She had trained Marines to fight on airless moons and in the crushing gravity of gas giants. "I can give you 200 Marines from the 3rd Colonial Battalion. They are good soldiers, trained for hostile environments." General Paul Hayes shook his head. "It is suicide, Admiral. We do not know anything about this enemy. We do not know how many ships they have or what kind of weapons they carry. We could be flying into a massacre." Blake was quiet for a long time. She looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leaders. These were people who had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and corporate armies on Mars. They were not cowards, but they were also not fools. Finally, Blake made her decision. "Prep the ships," she ordered. "If we are the only ones willing to answer, then we answer. That is what humans do." On Kepler 442b, Dr. Lixa Moonwhisper was still sending distress calls even as explosions got closer to her hiding place. Most of her city was destroyed now. Most of her people were dead or captured. The Vorthons were winning and they knew it. But somewhere in the dark between the stars, 3 small human ships were already racing toward her world at maximum speed. Their crews did not know what they would find when they got there. They did not know if they could win against whatever enemy was attacking the Zephyrians. They only knew that someone had asked for help, and no one else was coming. In the command center of the heavy cruiser Virginia, Captain Lisa Chen looked at the star charts showing their destination. In 36 hours, they would drop out of hyperspace and find out what kind of enemy they were facing. "Are you scared?" asked her second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Dan Foster. Chen smiled grimly. "Terrified," she admitted. "But that never stopped us before." Behind them, 200 Colonial Marines were checking their weapons and armor. They were humans who had grown up on a world where everything tried to kill them, trained by sergeants who had learned to fight in environments that would destroy most alien species. They were about to face an enemy they knew nothing about, with odds they could not calculate. They were ready. 34 hours after leaving Earth, the 3 human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of the Virginia, staring at the tactical display with growing anger. What she saw there made her stomach turn. 17 massive alien warships hung in orbit around the peaceful planet like vultures around a dying animal. Each ship was 3 times larger than her own vessel, covered in weapons and armor that looked like they could crack moons. Smaller fighter craft buzzed around them like angry wasps, diving down to attack targets on the planet's surface. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Dan Foster from his position at the tactical station. "Look at the size of those things." Captain Elena Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system from the Canterbury. "Virginia, are you seeing this? Those ships are bigger than anything in our database." "I see them," Chen replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. "But look closer, something is not right about their formation." Captain Luis Martinez from the Pueblo had been studying alien ship designs for years. His voice joined the conversation. "Chen is right. These ships are built for overwhelming firepower, not for speed or maneuvers. They are designed to fight. Other big ships in straight battle lines. Chen nodded as she studied the enemy formation. The alien ships moved slowly, like giant metal whales swimming through space. They were positioned to bombard the planet below, not to defend against fast attack ships coming from unexpected angles. On the planet's surface, Dr. Lixa Moonwhisper huddled in an underground shelter with the few survivors of her research station. Her instruments detected the arrival of the 3 new ships, and for a moment, hope flickered in her chest like a small flame. But when she analyzed the data, that hope almost died. 3 ships, she reported to Elder Windchime and the other survivors. Small ships from a species called humans. I have never heard of them before. Elder Windchime's translucent face showed his despair. 3 small ships against 17 giants? We are still doomed. The Zephyrians did not understand what they were looking at. They saw small ships facing impossible odds. They did not see 3 vessels crewed by beings who had learned to fight in the harshest environments their galaxy had to offer. Captain Chen opened a communication channel to both other ships. Canterbury, Pueblo, this is Virginia. We are outnumbered, almost 6 to 1. We are outgunned by more than 10 to 1. We have no idea what kind of weapons those ships carry. She paused for a moment. Anyone want to turn around and go home? The response from Captain Rodriguez was immediate. Negative, Virginia. Marines do not abandon people who need help. Captain Martinez's voice carried a grim laugh. Besides, when has Earth ever backed down from a fight we could not win? We are still here, are we not? Chen smiled despite the fear and anger churning in her stomach. These were her people. Humans who had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts, who had crawled out of caves to build cities and then reached for the stars. They did not run from bullies. All right then, she said. Let us show these aliens what happens when they pick on innocent people. All ships, battle stations, begin attack pattern Alpha. The 3 human ships accelerated toward the alien fleet, like arrows shot from a bow. Their fusion engines burned bright blue against the darkness of space, leaving trails of light that looked almost beautiful against the backdrop of stars. The aliens noticed them coming. The massive warships began to turn slowly, bringing their main weapon batteries around to face the approaching humans. But the alien ships moved like sleeping giants trying to swat flies. They were powerful but slow. The humans were fast. Evasive. Pattern Delta. Chen commanded as plasma beams lanced through space where the Virginia had been seconds before. The alien weapons were designed to destroy planets and space stations, not to hit small, fast targets that refused to stay still. Foster, target their sensor arrays, Chen ordered. If they cannot see us, they cannot hit us. The Virginia's railgun batteries opened fire, sending chunks of metal flying at incredible speed toward the nearest alien ship. The projectiles hit the enemy shields and exploded in flashes of light. The shields absorbed most of the damage, but the impacts disrupted the alien targeting systems. Meanwhile, the Canterbury and Pueblo had split off in different directions, forcing the alien fleet to divide their attention. The enemy ships were like giants trying to fight gnats. They had overwhelming power, but they could not bring that power to bear on targets that refused to sit still and die. This is Canterbury, Captain Rodriguez reported. Beginning Marine deployment. We are going to board the lead enemy ship. Foster's voice carried disbelief. Captain, their hull armor is 4 feet thick. How are you going to get through that? Colonel Amy Rodriguez's voice came from the Canterbury's Marine Bay, where 200 soldiers were strapping themselves into boarding pods. Simple. We brought bigger explosives. The Marines were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They wore powered armor designed to work in the crushing gravity of gas giant moons and the radiation storms of dying stars. They carried weapons tested in environments that would kill most alien species in seconds. Each Marine had survived training. That would have been considered torture by most civilized standards. But humans were not most species. They came from a world where everything tried to kill them, where survival meant being tougher, smarter, and more determined than anything else around them. The boarding pods launched from Canterbury like a swarm of metal bullets. The aliens tried, to shoot them down. But the pods were small and fast, and there were many of them. Most made it through the defensive fire. The first pod hit the lead alien ship with the force of a small meteor. Its shaped charge burned through the enemy armor like it was paper, creating a perfect hole for the Marines to pour through. Sergeant First Class Robert Stone was the first human through the breach, his squad close behind him. They found themselves in corridors designed for beings twice their height. The ship's interior was dark and filled with strange smells. Then they met their first alien warrior. The creature was 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor that looked like it had been carved from stone. It had 4 arms ending in claws that could cut through steel. When it saw the humans, it roared a challenge and charged forward. It lasted exactly 12 seconds. Stone and his squad moved through the alien ship like a force of nature. They had trained for this kind of fighting in the tunnels of Mars and the caverns of Europa. The aliens were strong and tough, but they fought like they were in some kind of formal duel. They had rules and traditions that made no sense in real combat. Humans had learned to fight on a world where there were no rules except survival. Every human Marine had survived training that would have killed warriors from a dozen other species. They fought with a combination of high technology and primitive fury that the aliens had never encountered. Sector 7 secured, Stone reported, as his squad moved deeper into the ship. These aliens do not know how to fight someone who refuses to follow their rules. Behind him, Private Maria Santos was placing explosive charges on key structural supports. Sergeant, their ship design is very centralized. If we take out 3 key points, we can disable this entire vessel. In space, the battle continued. The 3 human ships danced between the giant alien warships like wolves attacking a herd of elephants. They struck at critical systems and then vanished before the aliens could respond with their massive weapons. Captain Chen watched her tactical display as more boarding pods launched from the other ships. All vessels concentrate fire on their communication arrays. If we can cut their coordination, they will start making mistakes. The aliens were learning that size and power were not always enough. The humans were teaching them a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Sometimes the smaller predator wins not because it is stronger, but because it is smarter, faster, and willing to fight dirtier than anyone expects. The battle for Kepler 442b was just beginning, but already the tide was starting to turn. The space around Kepler 442b lit up like a fireworks show as the battle reached its peak. Plasma beams thick as train cars lanced through the darkness, missing the darting human ships by mere meters. The alien weapons were powerful enough to melt asteroids, but they kept hitting empty space where the humans had been moments before. Captain Lisa Chen gripped her command chair as the Virginia rolled and twisted through a pattern of evasive maneuvers that would have made a fighter pilot sick. Foster, status report on enemy targeting systems. Their accuracy is down 30% and falling, Lieutenant Commander Dan Foster reported from his station. Our railgun hits are disrupting their sensor networks faster than they can repair them. The 3 human ships moved through space like dancers in a deadly ballet. They had trained for this kind of fighting in the asteroid belts of their home system, where one mistake meant being crushed by rocks the size of mountains. Now they used those same skills against an enemy that had never faced anything like them. Inside the lead alien warship, Sergeant Robert Stone and his Marines were learning that fighting aliens was both easier and harder than they had expected. The corridors were huge and echoing, designed for creatures twice human height. Every room felt like a cathedral built for giants, but the aliens themselves fought like they were still in training exercises. Contact Front, called Private First Class Tony Garcia, as a group of alien warriors rounded the corner ahead. The creatures were impressive. 8 feet tall and covered in armor that looked like it had grown from their bodies. They carried weapons that hummed with energy and moved with the confidence of beings who had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never fought humans before. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds. The aliens advanced in formation, roaring challenges and firing their energy weapons in careful, controlled bursts. They fought with honor and tradition, following rules of combat that had served their species for thousands of years. Stone's Marines fought like they were back in the tunnels of Mars during the corporate wars, where honor got you killed and tradition was something you did after the enemy was dead. They used the oversized corridors to their advantage, bouncing off walls and ceilings in ways the aliens had never seen. Their weapons spoke in the sharp crack of railguns and the whisper of plasma cutters. When the smoke cleared, 6 alien warriors lay dead and the Marines had not lost a single soldier. "These guys are tough," Garcia said, checking the fallen aliens. "But they fight like they are in some kind of ceremony, all formal and predictable." "Good for us," Stone replied, leading his squad deeper into the ship. "Maria, how are those charges? Coming along?" Private Maria Santos looked up from the structural support beam she was rigging with explosives. "Almost done, Sergeant. This ship is built like a pyramid. Everything depends on a few key support points. Take those out, and the whole thing comes apart." In space, Captain Martinez aboard the Pueblo had discovered something important about the enemy fleet. "All ships, this is Pueblo. I am reading massive power transfers between the alien vessels. They are sharing energy through some kind of network." Chen's eyes lit up as she understood what that meant. "If we can cut those connections, their individual shields will drop to manageable levels." "Already plotting the connection points," Martinez replied. "Sending targeting data now." The 3 human ships repositioned themselves with the precision of a surgical team. The Virginia and Canterbury provided covering fire while the Pueblo made a high-speed run directly through the center of the alien formation. It was an insane maneuver that should have gotten Martinez and his crew killed instantly. Instead, it worked perfectly. The Pueblo's railguns targeted the energy transfer nodes connecting the alien ships. These were small, vulnerable points that the aliens had never thought to heavily defend. Why would they? No enemy had ever been fast enough or crazy enough to fly directly through their formation. They had never fought humans before. The results were immediate and devastating for the aliens. As their shield network collapsed, several of the massive warships suddenly found themselves vulnerable for the first time in the battle. Their individual shields, designed to work as part of a network, could not handle the full power of human weapons on their own. "Direct hits on targets 7 and 12, Foster reported with satisfaction. "Their shields are down to 40% and falling." The human ships pressed their advantage without mercy. They had learned long ago that mercy in battle was something you could afford only after your enemy was no longer a threat. The aliens had come to destroy an innocent world. The humans would make sure they regretted that decision. Meanwhile, aboard the alien flagship, Sergeant Stone's team had reached their primary objective. The ship's command center was a massive chamber filled with holographic displays and control stations built for giants. At the center of it all stood the alien commander. Commander Thraktul was an impressive specimen even by alien standards. Nearly 9 feet tall and covered in battle scars, he looked like he had been carved from living stone. His forearms ended in claws that could shred steel, and his eyes burned with the fury of a warrior who had never known defeat. "Impossible," he growled, his translator implant struggling with human speech. "How do such small, weak creatures dare to board my vessel?" Stone removed his helmet, revealing a face weathered by years of combat in environments that would have killed most species instantly. His smile was not pleasant. "Small and weak? Friend, you picked the wrong species to mess with." The fight that followed became legendary among both human and alien military forces. Commander Thraktul was a veteran warrior who had personally killed hundreds of enemies in hand-to-hand combat. He possessed strength that could crush steel and reflexes honed by decades of battle. He lasted 47 seconds against a single human Marine. Stone moved like liquid lightning, his combat techniques refined through humanity's expansion into the most hostile environments imaginable. When Thraktul's claws swept toward him, Stone was simply no longer there. The Marine's combat knife found the weak point in the alien's natural armor with surgical precision. As the alien commander fell, Stone was already moving toward the command console. Bridge secured, beginning data extraction and ship capture, protocols. Throughout the massive warship, similar scenes were playing out as human Marines systematically dismantled alien resistance. The aliens had expected to face civilians or perhaps a traditional military force that would fight according to established rules of galactic warfare. They had not expected to fight an enemy that had learned combat on a world where everything, from the weather to the smallest insects, was actively trying to kill them every single day. In space, the tide of battle had turned decisively. With their flagship captured and their shield network destroyed, the remaining alien warships found themselves being picked apart by the 3 human vessels. Ships that had seemed invincible an hour earlier were now burning wrecks drifting in the darkness. Captain Chen opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. "Attention alien vessels, this is Captain Lisa Chen of the Terran Defense Force. Your flagship has been captured and your commander is in our custody. Withdraw from this system immediately or we will destroy every one of your ships." The response was silence. Then, slowly, the surviving alien warships began to move away from the planet. Their formations were broken, their confidence shattered. They had come to this system expecting an easy victory over helpless civilians. Instead, they had learned that in this galaxy there were worse things than predators. There were protectors, and some protectors had very sharp teeth. The alien fleet was falling apart like a house of cards in a hurricane. With their flagship captured and their network shields destroyed, the massive warships that had seemed so powerful were now easy targets for the 3 human vessels. "Captain, Elena Rodriguez watched from the Canterbury as another alien ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Virginia, this is Canterbury. Enemy vessel number 4 is destroyed. That makes 6 down, 11 still active." "Copy that, Canterbury," came Captain Chen's voice from the Virginia. "But the remaining ships are trying to regroup. They are pulling back to form a new battle line. The aliens were learning, but they were learning too slowly. Their military doctrine was built around massive fleet battles between equally large forces. They had rules and formations that had worked for thousands of years against other traditional alien navies. But humans did not fight like other species." Aboard the captured alien flagship, Sergeant Stone was interrogating Commander Thractal in the ship's medical bay. The alien commander was wounded, but alive. His pride hurt worse than his body. Stone sat across from him, speaking through the universal translator. "Your fleet is being destroyed," Stone said calmly. "Your people are dying for nothing. Call them off." Thractal's 4 eyes burned with hatred. "You do not understand, human. The Vorthon horde does not retreat. We conquer, or we die. It is our way." "Your way is stupid," Stone replied bluntly. "You came here to kill innocent people who never hurt you. Now you are losing to 3 small ships. What does that say about your mighty horde?" The alien commander was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quieter now. How do such small creatures fight like demons? Your ships are tiny. Your weapons are weak. You should have died in the first minutes of battle." Stone leaned back in his chair. "You want to know the secret? We come from a world that has been trying to kill us since the day we crawled out of the oceans. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanoes, hurricanes, diseases, predators, poisonous plants. Everything on our planet wants us dead. We learned to fight, by fighting our own world every single day." He paused, letting that sink in. "You aliens live on nice, safe worlds with gentle weather and friendly environments. You have never had to fight just to breathe the air or drink the water. That makes you soft." Thractal stared at the human with something like understanding dawning in his alien eyes. "You are saying that your weakness made you strong?" "No," Stone corrected. "I am saying that what you think is weakness is actually strength. We are small, so we learn to be fast. We are not naturally armored, so we learn to be smart. We die easily, so we learn to be tough. Every human alive is a survivor of the deadliest world in the galaxy." In space, the battle continued to rage. The remaining alien ships had formed a defensive circle, concentrating their firepower to try to destroy the human vessels. But the humans had learned their patterns now, and they were exploiting every weakness they could find. Captain Martinez on the Pueblo had discovered that the alien ships had a blind spot directly above and below their hulls. All ships, attack pattern Gamma, come at them from above and below simultaneously. The 3 human ships split up again, approaching the alien formation from 3 different angles. The Virginia dove below the enemy fleet while Canterbury and Pueblo attacked from above. The aliens tried to track all 3 targets at once, but their massive ships were too slow to keep up. Direct hit on enemy vessel number 7, reported Foster from the Virginia. Their main reactor is going critical. The alien ship exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the system's star. The blast was so powerful that it damaged two other alien vessels nearby, sending them spinning out of control. Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Lixa Moonwhisper and the other Zephyrian survivors watched the battle through their instruments with growing amazement. The three small human ships were systematically destroying a fleet that had terrorized half the galaxy. "How is this possible?" whispered Elder Windchime. "The humans have only 3 ships, the aliens had 17 when this started." "I think," Lixa said slowly, "we have been thinking about this wrong. We assumed that bigger was always better, that more weapons meant more power, but the humans are showing us something different." She pulled up the tactical display, showing the dance of battle happening in orbit above them. "Look at how they move. They never stay in one place long enough to be hit. They attack the enemy's weaknesses instead of trying to match their strengths. They fight like survivors," finished Elder Windchime with sudden understanding. Back in space, the alien fleet was down to 7 ships. Their commanders were arguing among themselves, their coordinated attack falling apart as fear and confusion spread through their ranks. They had never faced an enemy like this before. Captain Chen opened a communication channel to the remaining alien vessels. "Attention, Vorthon ships. You have lost 10 of your 17 vessels. Your flagship is captured. Your commander has surrendered. You can withdraw now with honor, or you can stay and be destroyed. Choose quickly." The response came not from the alien ships but from the captured flagship. Commander Thractol's voice, broadcasting on all frequencies, reached every Vorthon vessel in the system. "All Vorthon ships, this is your commander. Cease fire and withdraw immediately. These humans are not what they appear to be. They are not weak prey animals. They are apex predators disguised as herbivores." There was a long pause. Then Thractol continued, his voice filled with something that might have been respect. "I have fought across the galaxy for 40 years. I have conquered worlds and destroyed fleets, but I have never encountered warriors like these. They fight without honor, without rules, without mercy. They fight to win, and they do win." The alien commander's words had an immediate effect on his fleet. One by one, the surviving Vorthon ships began to withdraw from the planet. Their engines flared as they prepared to jump to hyperspace, abandoning their attack on the peaceful Zephyrians. "All human vessels. This is Virginia," Chen announced. "Enemy fleet is withdrawing. Mission accomplished." But even as the immediate threat ended, everyone involved knew that something bigger had just happened. Word of this battle would spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The species that everyone had dismissed as primitive newcomers from a death world had just accomplished what the greatest military powers in the galaxy had said was impossible. They had answered a desperate call for help when no one else would. And they had won against impossible odds. The Zephyrians were safe, but the real impact of the Battle of Kepler 442b was just beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that there were new players in the game, and they played by very different rules. Human rules. Survivor rules. The rules of a species that had learned to fight by fighting their own planet every day of their existence. The rules of the Deathworlders. The last of the alien warships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving only burning wreckage and the 3 human vessels orbiting peacefully around Kepler 442b. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. Captain Lisa Chen materialized on the planet's surface using the Virginia's transporter beam. She found herself standing in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful crystal city. Broken towers lay scattered like fallen trees, and the air still smelled of smoke and destruction. "Doctor?" Lixa Moonwhisper approached her carefully, her translucent form seeming to glow in the dim light. The Zephyrian scientist looked at this small human woman who had just commanded the destruction of a fleet that had terrorized half the galaxy. "Captain Chen," Lixa said, her voice filled with wonder. "You came, despite the odds, despite having no reason to help us. Why?" Chen looked around at the devastated city and the Zephyrian survivors who were slowly emerging from their hiding places. Many were injured. All were afraid. But they were alive. And that was what mattered. Because someone asked for help, Chen said simply. And we were the only ones who answered. That is what neighbors do for each other. The word neighbors rippled through the crowd of survivors. In their language, it meant much more than just living nearby. It meant family, protection, shared responsibility. It meant that you were not alone in the universe. Elder Windchime stepped forward, his ancient form trembling with emotion. Captain Chen, the Zephyrian people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Our technology, our knowledge, our entire civilization is yours if you want it. Chen shook her head gently. We did not come here for payment, we came because it was the right thing to do. The rescue operation took 3 weeks. Human engineering teams worked alongside Zephyrian architects to rebuild the damaged cities. Marine medics treated wounded aliens with the same care they would show their own people. Human supply ships arrived from Earth carrying food, medicine, and construction materials. But the real change was happening in the hearts and minds of everyone involved. The Zephyrians learned that strength did not always come from size or advanced technology. Sometimes it came from determination and the willingness to fight for what was right. The humans learned that they were not alone in wanting to protect the innocent. The Zephyrians might not be fighters, but they were good people who deserved to live in peace. Word of the battle traveled fast across the galaxy. Within a month, every major civilization had heard the story of how 3 small human ships had defeated 17 massive alien warships. The details got exaggerated with each telling, but the basic facts remained the same. The humans had answered a call for help when no one else would. They had won against impossible odds. And they had done it not for profit or conquest, but simply because it was right. The Vorthon horde found their expansion stopped cold as world after world refused to surrender to a force that had been defeated by 3 human ships. Their reputation for invincibility was shattered. Commander Thraktul, recovered from his wounds and held in a surprisingly comfortable human prison, spent his time writing his memoirs. We thought ourselves the apex predators of the galaxy, he wrote. We learned that day that there are worse things than predators. There are protectors. And some protectors have very sharp teeth. The major galactic powers reacted to the news in different ways. The Altarian Federation sent a formal apology to Earth and an invitation to join their defensive alliance. They realized that they had made a serious mistake in dismissing these newcomers from the Death World. The Centauri Alliance offered exclusive trade agreements, suddenly very interested in human technology and military tactics. The Rigel Commerce Guild calculated new risk versus profit ratios and found that having humans as friends was much more valuable than having them as enemies. But the most important change was among the smaller, peaceful species scattered throughout the galaxy. Species like the Zephyrians, who had always been prey for stronger, more aggressive civilizations. They began to whisper a new phrase in hundreds of different languages, all meaning the same thing: call the humans. When pirates raided the crystal mines of Tau City, the miners called the humans. When corporate raiders tried to enslave the farmers of Wolf 359, the farmers called the humans. When the Bloodclaw Empire threatened the peaceful traders of Vega, the traders called the humans, and the humans answered. Not always with warships and marines, though sometimes that was necessary. Often they came with diplomats and negotiators who could find peaceful solutions. Sometimes they came with engineers and doctors who could solve problems with technology and medicine instead of weapons. But when peaceful solutions failed, when bullies refused to listen to reason, when innocent people were threatened by those who thought might made right, then the humans showed their teeth. Dr. Lixa Moonwhisper, now serving as Zephyrian ambassador to Earth, concluded her report to the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for generations. We sent out a call for help from any civilized species. We learned that day that civilization is not measured by the size of your ships or the power of your weapons. It is measured by what you do when someone weaker than yourself asks for protection. By that measure, there may be no species more civilized than humanity. The human embassy on the council world of New Geneva became the busiest diplomatic post in the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth a year earlier now waited in long lines to meet with human representatives. They came seeking trade agreements, defensive pacts, and technical assistance. But mostly, they came seeking something that had become very rare in the galaxy: the knowledge that someone would answer if they called for help. Admiral Susan Blake, now promoted to head of the new Galactic Defense Initiative, stood on the observation deck of the massive space station humanity had built at the edge of their solar system. Ships from dozens of worlds came and went daily, carrying diplomats, traders, and students eager to learn from the species that had changed everything. Captain Chen found her there one evening, looking out at the stars. "Any regrets, Admiral?" Blake smiled. "About what? Saving innocent people? Showing bullies that they cannot do whatever they want? Teaching the galaxy that someone still cares about doing the right thing?" She gestured toward the busy docking bays where alien ships were taking on human advisors and protection details. "Look at what we have built, Lisa. Not through conquest or intimidation, but by simply being willing to help when others would not." Chen nodded, watching a Zephyrian transport ship dock alongside a human destroyer. The two crews worked together now as naturally as if they had been allies for centuries, instead of months. "The galaxy is changing," she observed. "Yes," Blake agreed. "And we changed it. 3 ships and 600 people answered one desperate call for help, and the whole galaxy shifted. Not bad for a species from a death world that everyone thought was too primitive to matter." The Battle of Kepler 442b had ended months ago, but its effects would last for generations. The humans had proven that size and technology were not the only measures of strength. Sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe was simply the willingness to stand up and say, "Not on my watch." The galaxy would never be the same.